Let's get on to the first main topic. And our first main topic today gets sent to us from Bobby Gaylord, who writes, I just left the movie Joker and wow, I am drained. I feel like I just saw the Schindler's List of comic book movies. It's so good that I know I'm going to have to see it again. But like many have said in the past, it's a movie that's so good but hard to watch again and again. It's true. I think I'll need a week or so before I venture back to that world again. My question is, will fans want to come back and give Joker repeat business? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, listen, yesterday I had a chance to I've been looking forward to it all year. I finally had a chance to go and watch Joker. Amongst all the hoopla that the critics were raving about it, winning some awards, and then some critics not liking it, and then there was some fears going around about it, and all the noise. I just wanted to see the damn movie. You know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you guys can relate. I just wanted to see the damn movie. I've been so excited about it for so long. Went in, bunch of friends went to go see it. Me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and my buddy Soul, Christian Harloff came along with us. We all went in and we watched Joker last night. And I'll tell you what, I loved it. I thought this was a comic book movie that transcended the genre of comic book movies in a way that only one or two other comic book movies ever have. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's the top one or two best comic book movies of all time. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying it transcended the comic book genre in a way that probably only one or two movies ever have before. It was powerful. It was filled with tension. It is filled with tragedy. It really is, in many ways, not a Shakespearean tragedy, but it is a tragedy. The story is a tragedy. We see in the trailer Arthur Fleck saying, I used to think that my life was a tragedy. Now I realize it's comedy. No, he was right the first time. The story of Arthur Fleck, who becomes Joker in this movie, is a story of a tragedy. And here's one of the things that I loved about it. This movie, Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoenix, the people behind this film, Martin Scorsese, who originally brought this to the studio with Todd Phillips, what they all had the vision of was, let's do a character study of what happens, at least this is how I interpreted it, when a broken character is surrounded by a broken environment. And here's why I think that's brilliant, because we are so used to seeing so many of the movies that we watch and so many of the movies that we love. We are used to seeing them tell this story. The story of a character who is sort of broken, but because they're surrounded or something beautiful comes into their life or something that is right comes into their life, it's able to fix the broken character or help the broken character become whole, That's the normal. And that's great. That's awesome. That's wonderful. But that is the normal kind of approach we're used to seeing, not just in comic book movies, but in movies in general. Our main hero, our main character, there's something broken, whether it's something that's about them or something that they need to do, there's something broken. And if there are events and circumstances and other characters and other forces that come around in their life that are holistic and healing and helps them become whole. That's what we're used to seeing. Maybe to a degree we're so used to seeing it, that's what we want to see. Joker tells a very different story. Joker tells a story about a man who is broken. Arthur Fleck. I mean, you got that from the trailers. He is a broken man. But what happens when that broken man, instead of being surrounded by support, instead of being surrounded by love, instead of being surrounded by other healthy people, what happens when we get a character like Arthur Fleck, who is broken by nature, but then also surrounded and submerged in an equally broken environment? What happens then? And this whole movie plays out as a character study of watching this broken character descend further and further into brokenness, because not only is there nothing around to help him put the pieces together, he's surrounded in an environment that is helping to contribute to him being torn apart into more and more pieces as he becomes more and more fragile and more broken. It is riveting. It is riveting. Now, I'll tell you what. My main concern going into Joker, and I said this a couple of months ago, my main concern going into Joker was that we're going to get a number of people going into this movie, understandably so, thinking, hey, Joker, the comic book villain, woo, this is going to be fun, right? And a lot of people might go in there with that sort of a mindset. And if you go into Joker with that sort of a mindset, you're in for, at best, a shock, at worst, a major letdown, because that's not the movie you're going to get. This is not a fun movie. This is not an exciting movie. This is not an action-packed movie. This is not your traditional run-of-the-mill comic book film. This is a film that says, let's take an iconic comic book character, and if we thrust him into a dark, more grounded sort of world where this broken character was surrounded in a broken environment, let's study what would happen to that guy and how he gets to where he eventually goes. It's a slow burn, but I'm telling you, I was riveted to the screen every single time. Now, look, there are a couple of things that happen in the movie that are a little bit predictable, and we'll go into that more in our spoiler discussion on Sunday, and we're going to do a full spoiler discussion on Sunday afternoon for you guys who are wondering. We'll go into that stuff, but there are a few things that were a little bit predictable. Some things that you thought were predictable that turned out to be big surprises. I won't go into those things in particular here. But from minute one, I was riveted, and one of the key points here is the performance of Joaquin Phoenix. We've all heard Joaquin Phoenix does amazing in this movie, but I'm telling you what, hearing about how amazing Joaquin Phoenix is in this movie and actually sitting in the theater and watching how amazing Joaquin Phoenix is in this movie is night and day difference, because I can't describe to you how insanely good Joaquin Phoenix is in this movie. There's not a practical way to tangibilize it for you and manifest it for you in words. You have to see it. You forget you're looking at Joaquin Phoenix and you just think you're looking at this broken man, Arthur Fleck. It's crazy. Now, I don't know if he's going to win an Academy Award because there are a few performances still to come that who knows, maybe will be better than his. But I will be shocked if he's not at least nominated for Best Actor for this. Again, I can't say he should win because there's a lot of performances I haven't watched yet, but he should be nominated at the very least. At the very least. Now, I'm going to bring this up here too. Some people, inevitably, you always get this. A bunch of people asking me, Whose Joker is better, Joaquin Phoenix or Heath Ledger's? My answer to that is simply this, and it's not a cop-out. They're completely different characters. The Joker, as portrayed by Heath Ledger, was a very different character. It's not the same character. It's based on the same comic book character. They are both called Joker and all that kind of stuff, but really, essentially, these are two very different characters. It's not like we had one actor playing Abraham Lincoln and another actor playing Abraham Lincoln, the historical Abraham Lincoln, not the Abraham Lincoln from Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, but like the historical Abraham Lincoln, and then you can kind of compare it. Honestly, the Heath Ledger Joker character is such a radically different character that there's no comparing the two. There's no comparing the two. I don't know how you can honestly compare it. So all I'm going to say is that they're both magnificent. So I can't say one is better than the other because they're playing such different characters. The other thing I want to address here is this, is the criticism that some people have been levying against Joker, saying that it kind of glorifies the violence and the brokenness. And on that degree, look, and there is, if you look at the movie a certain way, listen, there are people out there who saying, I was uncomfortable with this movie because it seemed like it was celebrating the violence. And you know what? From a certain point of view, they're not just being hyperly oversensitive. From a certain point of view, you can see why they saw that. You can. Like, if you're going to be honest and go in with an open mind, I think you can honestly say, yeah, I could see how you could look at this movie and interpret it in such a way that it seems like they're glorifying violence. And I can see why you would be sensitive to that. I, however, did not see it that way. Look, There's an old saying that says everybody is the hero of their own story, right? And the same is true of villains. Villains are the heroes of their story. In their mind, they're the heroes. In the villain's mind, at least in a lot of them, they're justified. Anything that they do that is kind of crazy or wrong or evil, they're justified in doing so. You know, look at Thanos, for example. Thanos is going to wipe out half the universe, but in his mind, he was the hero. He justified it to himself. He thought, oh, I'm saving the universe. No, you're being a genocidal maniac. But in his mind, in his story, he's the hero. Joker, the movie, is told in such a way that it is told from Arthur Fleck's point of view. And being from Arthur Fleck's point of view, it presents it how Arthur Fleck would see it. It's not presenting it, and it's not trying to tell us, this is how you, the audience, should see it. That's not what it's doing. What it's doing is, this is being told from Arthur's point of view. So everything that Arthur does in this movie, we're going to look at it through Arthur's eyes. We're going to look at it through Fleck's point of view. And how, if it seems like the movie is justifying something violent and crazy Fleck does, it's not that the movie's justifying it. It's just that Arthur himself would justify it. He feels justified in doing it, as all villains do. And this movie is being told through the lens of his eyes. And again, I'm not going to poo-poo on anybody who looks at this movie and says, that movie celebrates violence. Because I guess, yeah, if you do look at it in a certain way, it can feel that way. But all I can tell you is my own experience, which was watching it, it never once celebrated violence. And it never once justified anything that Fleck did or Joker did. What it simply did was told us what happened through his perspective, and that's what his perspective would have been. And it created for some riveting storytelling. I'll tell you what, guys, this is a special movie. I don't know that it's my favorite film of the year. It probably still isn't my number one favorite film of the year, but this is a magnificent movie. Such a ballsy thing to do for Warner Brothers to make a movie like this. And thank you, God, that finally one of the comic book movie making studios had the balls to make a standalone movie. This movie's great. Now, not everybody agrees. This movie is not for everybody. Believe that. This movie's not for everybody. A couple of people that I saw it with walked out going, I'm not so sure how much I like that. And I think there's going to be some audience members who walk out the same way. And that's totally cool. This movie is not for everybody. But oh my God, it was for me. It was for me. And I cannot wait to see it again. To the question that was sent in here by Bob about, is it because it is so heavy and it is so intense and it is violent in not just in what happens on screen, but in whole tone and everything like that. Is it a movie that people are going to go back and flock to see it again and again and again and again? I think there are some of us like me that will be going to see Joker 3 or 4 times in the theaters. But I also think there's going to be a lot of people who like the film but may not go see it 2 or 3 times. I think there are going to be a good number of people that really appreciate this movie, but it's like, that's a heavy downer of a movie, man. I don't know if I can sit through that. Kind of like me with Schindler's List. Schindler's List, one of the greatest films of all time. I can't watch it again. I just can't. It just rips my soul apart. I just can't. And this, my wife, Anne, she came out of it and she said, it's like watching a movie of 2 hours of a guy becoming more and more addicted to drugs. It's told incredibly well, but it's hard to watch at times. And I think that's true, which I also think speaks to the brilliance of the film. Again, look, all film is subjective. A bunch of people are going to like this movie. A bunch of people are not. All I can tell you is my personal experience with it. I thought Joker frickin' ruled. I thought this movie ruled. And kudos to I didn't know that Hollywood was capable of making a movie like that, a comic book movie like that. It's just fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. I love it. And again, don't be surprised if you watch it and you don't like it. I don't think it's for everybody. I'm just telling you, for me, myself, and I, we liked it very, very much. Anyway, I'm sure we'll talk more about Joker as we get into the live questions, but